Welcome. Okay, so thanks everyone for joining into our Ascenders Create Unicorn Coaching. I'm Shen Yuan. All right. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to thank everyone for participating in our Ascender Impact Accelerator, perhaps as an intern, okay, or as someone interested to become a social entrepreneur, impact entrepreneur at some point. All right. So this is our first mastermind coaching session. And basically, I think I will start off by giving some introduction, okay, both to about myself and also to the program. Now, I think probably, hopefully, all of you have, or maybe some of you have watched the webinar, okay, already, that basically explains what we have been doing. Okay, but I would still like to just give a quick background about myself, okay, and what we've been trying to accomplish. So I basically I started my entrepreneur journey. Actually, I would say back when I was 7 years old. Okay, that's when I started to play computer games, and actually because of that, I wanted to become a game developer very early on. And I started to teach myself, programming at age 14, self-taught. And then actually, I did not end up becoming a developer, but I actually went into doing game research. Okay, become a researcher because all my. Oh, all right. By the way, please keep you muted if you are joining. Okay. All right. If you're joining, yeah. Okay. Yeah, please keep muted. So basically, that started. So I actually was doing research about how to build scalable virtual worlds. Okay, nowadays we know that as the metaverse. Okay, that's kind of my background. And I actually got a PhD in computer science for that. And finishing up, typically it would take probably 4 to 6 years. I think I completed my PhD in about 3 years, the most of the work. But that wasn't what I wanted to do because I think since a pretty early age, what I wanted was to create positive impact for society. I'm sure many of you would resonate with that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here. Okay. Uh, Probably we know that today, right? Actually, I think today more than ever, social entrepreneurship or some kind of social impact is even more important, right? Because we're facing a lot of different challenges from our different aspects of life. There's environmental challenge, there's climate, right? There's the wealth disparity, there's the food that we're eating, right? There's education. There's a lot of different challenges now that actually would demand, I think, great social entrepreneurs. So for me, I knew that just publishing paper and become a professor, although that would have been quite actually comfortable and easy for me, I was already getting a high salary, okay, even without much effort. But I felt that, I wanted to actually, create more positive impact by entrepreneurship. So I started my first company back in 2011. It's called Immunology. Okay, it's actually we started off as with the goal to build the backbone for the metaverse. But it then turned into a project company that does agile programming and in various projects, from games to cloud surveillance to IT system, blockchain, whatnot. But during this process, okay, because we were a lot of our clients were actually really small game developers. You might have heard of independent filmmakers, right? Similarly, there's what's called independent game developers. So these indie game developers, they actually, they would die rather quickly. Okay, if they cannot make something rather quick, let's say in 3 to 6 months, right, have some progress, they would have died, right? So we actually were forced into developing some of the really agile methodologies that was, fast iterations and things. But because of that experience, I think I've learned and taught, I learned the importance that, time is something, traditionally, if a game takes, let's say back then, it would take like 1 to 2 years of time. It's actually doable, with much less time frame. Okay, so time is not really a reality, but it's really a concept that can be sort of tweaked around. Now, fast forward to 2000, and since then I have my second company called JCF because I wanted to. There's another story, which is I actually grew up in my secondary school was in the U.S. Okay, for 5 years, and I was living in Boston. Actually, one of our partner here, Jane, she's now living in Boston. I was in Boston for 5 years. And regardless of New York or LA or Boston, or these major universities, one thing that kind of really struck me was you saw all these homeless people, okay, that are living in really bad conditions and really poor, extreme poverty, and yet they were in America, okay, one of the wealthiest nations in the world. So that was really, really puzzling to me because, to me, growing up in Taiwan, I'm from Taiwan, right? I'm also in Taiwan. Um, like US they have twice the capital income, twice as rich as Taiwanese on average back then and still is now. Okay, and yet there were all these really, really extreme, people in extreme poverty. And that was puzzling because in Taiwan, we actually did not have that. Okay, we didn't have that when I grew up, I was born in 1979. So at a young, I guess, teenage age, that made an impression. And I was just started to wonder and question, why was that? And a few years later, I got interested into a concept called basic income, okay, universal basic income. And I was totally bought into the concept because, if you understand if you have, get in touch with the concept, it's not just providing financial protection. So it's kind of like everybody gets some minimum money, okay, for basic living. But it not only protects the people who are kind of, poverty line. If you have that kind of protection, right, you might also want to do something more audacious and challenging. For example, as a young person, right, I think many of you are perhaps maybe in the university range, maybe, graduating, but you could travel the world, right, maybe for a while and to really see what's out there and learn, right? Or if you want to become, an artist, we know that initially you may not, be able to support yourself purely through art. But if you have basic income protection, that could be something. Or you could decide to become an entrepreneur, right? That's also another possibility. So basically, because of that, I wanted to, create something that could support basic income. But it was out of the question, out of the picture, because right, obviously it requires a lot of money to do the funding. So I was thinking, well, maybe until I become a billionaire, right? But that's just push that aside. However, in 2017, something happened, which was Bitcoin. Many of you probably are well aware. Okay, Bitcoin jumped from 1 to 1,000 to 1 to 20,000. Right now it's like 80,000 or something, right? At one point it was 100,000. But basically Bitcoin jumped 20 times within a very short amount of time. So I was asking myself, 3 questions. The first was, is this real, right? And the second, is this investable? Okay, but third, but I think this is an even more important question is, can this be something that uplift all of us, to become better financially, rather than, the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer? as arguably in the Web2 space, although we have giants like Google, Amazon, Facebook, but the wealth gap also become more, increase, becomes worse, right? And I don't think it's getting better at this point. So yeah, so that actually became my second company, which was we were a crypto assets company investing in crypto assets, but with the goal to make basic income universal. And I think we did a fairly successful pilot for that. Although we're now figuring ways how to scale that. Okay, but the last bit I like to share of my personal journey. Actually, let me show some slides then. This is actually something I have, I think if you have watched the webinar from Ascender, you probably have seen this. But let me just share the slides here. Okay. But in 2000, so my journey basically also brought me to meet great people. Okay, my entrepreneurship, like this guy here, Tim Draper, he invested into companies like Skype, Hotmail, Baidu, SpaceX, Tesla, okay, and Coinbase, the crypto exchange in US, and Yancey Strickler, okay, the co-founder, former CEO of Kickstarter. And I was so touched by his book, This Could Be Our Future, back in 2019. I even helped to make the connection to get it translated to Chinese. Okay, that happened, a few years ago. So, but I would say my biggest mentor that has impacted me the most is this guy, okay, Dr. Benjamin Hardy. So some of you may or may not know him, but he's an organization psychologist and used to be the #1 blogger in the world on Medium.com for 3 years. Okay, his articles were read by over 100 million times. And also published at different inks, some of the prestigious magazines. But I think one of the biggest thing about him is he has personally gone through many what's called 10x jumps. Okay, he almost could not graduate from high school. He lived in his origin family. His father was actually a drug addict, and he didn't have a good childhood or teenage year. But then he decided, after 2 years serving a mission, he decided to become a professional author. And because of that vision, he was doing a lot of journaling and reading. He wanted to become an author. And when he was back, he not only went back to school, got his PhD, formed a family. Actually, his kids jumped from 0 to 5 in 1 year, adopting 3 and with a twin, born. He has gone through multiple steps like that. And also, because of that, I get to know his mentor. So I started to learn with Dr. Ben Hardy since 2018. And I also get to know this guy, Dan Sullivan. Okay, he's the founder, along with his wife, the founder of Strategic Coach, one of the top entrepreneur, coaching company in the world. They've trained over 20,000 entrepreneurs so far, including, Peter Diamandis, who is very famous for his Express Foundation and Singularity University. Okay, and actually to join Strategic Coach, you have to be of a certain caliber in terms of income or revenue, and it actually costs at least 10,000 US dollar, okay, to join the signature initial program. And I was fortunate to actually be invited to join, okay, 3 years ago. So because of these learning, I came to realize that, there's obviously I've learned a lot, but I am also onto my own personal 10x journey. So this is what became Ascender, all right? And I always knew, because social entrepreneurship is not easy. Okay, if you have, you have to take care of what's called actually, I think, not just double, maybe triple bottom line. Okay, you have to be profitable, you have to make money, right? You make ends meet, you have to serve a social purpose, right? And sometimes you also have to, concern for not just your company, but also for society at large, right? So I knew that I wanted to do something like an accelerator to help more social unicorns and some social enterprise become successful. But that's probably going to be after I retire, after 20 years. So, but because I'm learning 10x thinking from Dr. Ben Hardy, so there's actually a good question from Peter Thiel. Okay, and I would invite all of you to think about this question. If you have a 10-year plan or goal of, get to somewhere, right? Perhaps you can ask, why can't you do this in 6 months? All right. So this actually forms the basis for Ascender. Now, so I actually started to do that almost a year ago and now running different iterations. Okay, so the core idea of Ascender is that we actually want to, if whether we can actually build unicorns, okay, 1,000 of them, let's say in 20 years. Okay, so I'll save the details, about why we set this number. You can watch the webinar, but this is essentially what we're trying to do. And because of this high impossible goal, we want to, basically figure out the way to do this. And I'd say, so a year ago, realized that, probably more than a year ago, if we can combine the best knowledge and the best coaching and, just share with people who may not have access to this knowledge, then we might be able to create, something really unique and actually get to that 1,000 unicorn sizes within, some period of time. And I also came to, solve the idea of a 3-person unicorn, which is actually originally termed by Peter Diomedes. Because if you look at unicorns are companies that have $1 billion valuation, okay, or actually translate the $100 million in revenue. So if you actually look at the number of people in a unicorn company, WhatsApp was acquired when, to become a unicorn status with 50 people. Instagram was 12. Okay, so the numbers are declining. So Peter thought, maybe the 3-person unicorn is around the corner. And I realized if we actually have such a goal to get to 1,000 in 20 years, likely this is going to be, we have to do something very different, right? So we want to focus on how to build perhaps the first 3-person unicorn through Ascender, all right? And how can we do this? Well, right now our approach is we kind of reverse engineer. First off, where can we find the best unicorn school? And that is Y Combinator, okay? They have incubated actually 4,000 startups, over 100 unicorns, probably the best school. And they have the Startup School. This is free materials on the web. Okay, you can get it for free. But, if you are just learning this by yourself on your own, probably you may not go very far or complete this. Because we know that, learning a lot of materials usually is tedious, right? Without a class, without a school, without a kind of a classmates or cohort, it may be hard, right? But what if not just the YC stuff? We can also learn from the best entrepreneur mindset coaching expert, Ben Sullivan, right? He actually coaches, just to give you some idea, of the 2,500 active members of Coach, they collectively, companies are worth $15 billion. So that's $6 million on average, okay? And so these are really high caliber entrepreneurs. Now, let's say if we can actually come, and he teaches people about how to make, not just any company, but what's called self-managing company, which means company runs on its own. And also, not just that, but maybe self-multiplying company. And he's also a master of what's called 10x is easier than 2x, the 10x mindset. So we thought if we can combine that, plus accountability groups, which I personally benefit a lot, okay? When you are learning with a group, you can go much faster, right? So this is essentially the current formula for Ascender, all right? So what we're going to do here is actually basically if you already sign up for the so let me just pause here a bit. Is there any questions so far from people here? I guess just anyone with any questions if you'd like to ask. Is everything so far digestible? Or you can type in the chat, okay, if you're too shy. Yeah, and by the way, I encourage you to open up your camera, okay, if possible. Okay, better to share your face. Right, all right. So if you have signed up, okay, if you have signed up the course, which, so already I'm telling you, you want to sign up for YC's Startup School, which is, you can do it for free, right? It's all the original materials. Although we are doing a short version for that, but I would, highly recommend and also to spend some time to go over the original materials, okay? And the other thing is you want to get access to this course, okay? To our Create Unicorn course. I think you already have instruction. If you don't know, just go find in a WhatsApp group. You should also join the WhatsApp group. So doing a bit of housekeeping. With this, you can log in, okay? And you're going to see, once you have created your account, get access, you will see the course. These are some of the other courses I've offered. So you should see this Create Unicorn, all right? But our format is very simple. It's we have weekly recorded videos, very short, designed to be very short. Your time commitment literally is about, let's say 15 to 20 minutes per day, Monday to Friday. Okay, I encourage you to set up a fixed time to watch the video, answer some questions. This will be enough. And then attend the weekly coaching mastermind session, which is now, okay, at this time. So the course is designed on a weekly, rhythm. And we actually have 12 weeks, okay, covering all the YC materials. And usually Monday and Friday are what's called the 10X mindset thing. You will learn a bit about mindset stuff. And we have 3 YC modules, concepts that's summarized, okay, with links to the original ones you can check. And then we have the weekly mastermind, which will also share the recording here, okay, and also have a weekly assignment. Now, the assignment are very simple questions to help you to review and also make plans for next week. All right. And you have to complete the assignment in order to get to next week's materials, okay, to unlock next week's, right? So we go from week to week, and there's no need to, go faster. Just go with the pace of the cohort. Because, and if you have time, I encourage you to dive deeper into the YC materials yourself. All right. So this is pretty much it, okay? And if you're into a certificate at the end of completing everything, a certificate will be mailed to you automatically. Okay, for those of you that's curious or interested. All right, so I guess that's pretty much it. Okay, so there's some question. What's the duration? You can send message publicly. Okay, no worries. The durations is 3 months. Okay, starting from this month, April, May, and June. We run in quarters. This is also called energy cycles, okay? Because every time 90 days, we actually, we can set goals, accomplish that, and, actually, and do some review. And the goal here, okay, basically for Ascender, for you guys, is I already stated the goal for Ascender is to incubate 3% unicorns, 1,000 of them. So I would definitely wish many of you can become such, okay? And, but we all know that, to start something from nothing may be hard. You may already have some ideas or you may not, but it's okay, okay? If you have ideas, I encourage you to pursue them, okay, develop them during the 3-month period into product team, and even, you can an existing business. Okay, we're going to teach you a lot of mindset stuff that's going to help you grow very quickly. Okay. And but if not, you're also welcome to join one of our existing in-house projects. One of them is called Pure Harvest, which is an organic startup to make organic common. So our format on a weekly basis is the first hour is this coaching, okay? And the second hour actually will be our work sync that currently we have some people from the previous cohort already working with us to try to build up this, actually our first unicorn company. Our goal is to get there within 1 to 3 years. Okay, that's actually very aggressive. And you're welcome, it's open, you're welcome to stay for the second hour and listen through. And if you, at some point, if you want to join to contribute, you can let us know, okay, and we'll probably give you some task to, to participate, all right? So that's pretty much how the program is run. So basically, in short, this is very much a self-initiated program, okay? You can spend a lot of time on this or very little time. It's completely up to you. But I'm sure you will also get very different results, okay, depending on your intention and your effort, all right? But as entrepreneurs, the key is actually results, not time and effort, okay, as you will learn, all right? Oh, okay, so I guess any questions before we move to today's coaching? Is everything good so far? Or do you have any questions you'd like to ask, either voice or through chat? All right. If not, then we'll go to the coaching part, okay? So the first week, okay, for the YC stuff is actually, very interestingly, deciding to start a startup, okay, which is, it's a decision you want to make. Nobody can force you to do this, okay? Because, entrepreneurship is probably not for everyone. Dan Sullivan, I think he said that it's probably only 5% of the population, who will end up become entrepreneurs. But regardless of whether you want to become a professional entrepreneur or not, I think going through this coaching will definitely help you a lot professionally, okay? And maybe you will plant the seeds, even if not today, maybe sometime later, you might have the idea or the desire to become an entrepreneur. And you might recall and find the materials you learned today are actually quite helpful, okay? So I'll be sharing some of the high-level concepts for this week's material, kind of a summary, all right? And then I'll also post some questions for you to answer. So this week, for YC, because they have seen so many entrepreneurs and founders, they has a lot of experience to share. And one of the things they observe in successful entrepreneurs is that resilience is a key. Okay, if one thing, entrepreneurs by definitions are people who are going after challenging goals, right? Of building up a company, building up an organization, creating a product, going to a market, right? Facing a lot of uncertainty, risk, adversity, right? But still sustaining through until they become successful. So resilience, persistence, consistency, usually that's the trait, okay? If you have that kind of characteristic in your history or in your, I guess, your character or your, as a person, then perhaps you are, good entrepreneur material, okay? Now, but regardless, actually, I would encourage you to at least try, into this area somewhat, because regardless of whether you end up doing this as your career, you will learn a lot during the journey. Okay, and this is, almost, again, by definition, because you're going into something unknown territories. One thing you can evaluate is the energy level. Some of the entrepreneur activities, including creating stuff, talking to people, talking to customers, right? Solving people's problem, addressing their needs, right? Helping others. And particularly if you want to become an impact or social entrepreneur, you likely already have a keen interest or curiosity or some knowledge about some social societal problems you have observed for a long time. Like I was just sharing my second company, JCF, the crypto impact fund, that actually started with the seeds planted when I was a teenager and seeing homeless people on the streets in US, right? That happened many, many years ago, but that kind of planted the seeds for my second company and even to a sender today, right? So you can judge if some of these activities actually energize you, then it's probably a good indication that this may be something for you. Okay. Now, YC also talks about in this week's why you should leave your FANG job, which I think stands for Facebook, Amazon, Netflix, Google, all these companies, right? Apple. And the reason is that I think I'm assuming most of you started or wanting to maybe get a good job at some place, organization, right? The larger, the more prestigious, the better. And we actually have Jane here. She's worked at 3 multinational companies, okay, but also in some startups. She's our partner. But the experience probably, I think Jane can probably testify this, is that large corporations, they are designed to keep you here, okay, because you're there for a reason. You're there to make sure that the corporate machine can run smoothly. So usually there's a lot of benefits, perks, things that would encourage you to stay long term, right? So if you actually want to start up your own business, going into large company in some sense may be counterproductive, okay? But it doesn't mean that you don't, and you may actually learn some ideas that actually would not be suitable for entrepreneurship. Because in a large company, you have a lot of resource, okay? And you only have to focus on a very small range of stuff to focus. But when you're the entrepreneur, you actually have very little resource and a lot of things to do, okay? So it's actually a very different environment. Now, that is not to say you cannot take a corporate job if you want to become an entrepreneur, but make sure you thought about what is your exit plan? When are you going to actually, move on to another role? But I would also like to add that there's another approach, and this is something a lady called Sarmana. Okay, she's also an Indian woman entrepreneur. She started the organization, the company called 1 Million by 1 Million. I'm actually also learning from her at the moment because she has coached some unicorn founders, and she basically mentioned that you can bootstrap. She encouraged bootstrapping your company, meaning that you are actually paying to get your company started, okay, to get your entrepreneur started without outside capital. And this is something you can do it with your paycheck, okay, meaning that while you're getting a salary, you're actually doing your entrepreneur thing on the side. And this is actually a very good model because not only you cover your daily expenses, but you can also learn to actually work on something of your interest, in your spare time quite effectively. Okay, I think that's also a skill. Great entrepreneurs are not people with a lot of resource, but actually people who are very resourceful, meaning that you can grow resources out of nothing, out of thin air. All right, okay. And the third, I think, YC module talks about why you may not want to do a startup. Okay, there are many reasons, but actually none are very definite. For example, I'm too old, I'm too young, and I don't have the experience, I don't have the money, I don't have the connections, I don't have the product. Okay, you can give yourself a lot of reasons. But actually, none is definite. All the above, you can always find examples of people who are in that situation, but actually not only started, but become great entrepreneurs. Okay, so those are not really reasons, but excuse. However, if you have a family, right, you have other obligations, right? You know, you may want to consider for your family, not just go full in. Okay. If you're young, that may be better. Okay. Or if you're single. And but basically if you have more obligations, obviously that might place more demand on you. But it's something that I think the bottom line is you should give it a try, give it a thought. Because, and I think this is also YC's stance. They encourage you to do and to apply for YC, even if you don't think there's much of a chance. And the reason is that sometimes without trying, without actually getting into this, without actually doing this, you will not know if you're actually the materials. Okay, you actually won't know until you actually try, because you might surprise yourself of your potential, of your insights, of your capabilities. Once you actually started seriously to want to start a business and become an entrepreneur, right? That um, that might change a lot of your perspectives. Okay, so these are some of the, I think, the key questions. All right, sorry, key concepts from this week. Now I'm going to ask some questions for you to do some journaling about, and these are short questions from what I just shared, and it will also hopefully provide you with a what I would call a thinking space. Okay, because a lot of times we learn, we know information, but you do want to reflect on what you learn in order to actually grasp and actually make that part of your own, right? So today's first question is that we talk about resilience, right? We talk about resilience. So this is a story, okay, from your past that basically it was a failure for you, okay, but you actually restarted from an experience and successfully, meaning that you actually have gotten past that, failure experience and recover or stand up again. Identify three key factors that actually help you recover. Okay, and I would say this is key because you know we all have our bad experiences, but you know it's something is that a lot of times you either uh, get something, right, achieve something, or you learn something, right? So even if it's a failure, if you can actually learn something valuable from that, that will still be a, something that has helped you to grow. All right. So I'll give everyone actually just one, uh, let's say 90 seconds on this, okay, to journal on this. What's one experience from your past, that you restarted after a failure and successfully? Identify three key factors that actually help you recover from that, failure experience. Okay, is the question clear? Okay, if there's no question, then we'll start 90 seconds just to write. Okay, you can write as much as possible. Okay, during the 90 seconds. Okay, so let's start. Okay, so we have 10 more seconds. So perhaps wrap up. Okay, all right. So our next question today, okay, is that okay, we talk about um, energy levels, right? Okay, so um, there's actually a concept, okay, about how you can measure. There are different tasks. Sometimes when you're doing certain things, okay, you actually are very happy and engaged, and you can enter what's called a flow mode. Okay, I think we all have this experience, which is you completely immerse in the process, right? And forget about time and space. You kind of are dispersed, right? So this is when you are actually into a flow mode and perhaps you're at what's called your genius zone. Now, there are certain other things okay, so for example, when I am having a vibrant discussion with people, like brainstorming, finding solutions, right? Or actually doing some really great coaching, right? Teaching people. That's when I'm in my genius zone. However, there are some things you are doing just okay, adequately. Okay, it's not something you're too great, but also not too bad, right? And you do okay. And then there are things that you're just doing it poorly, or if you do it, that actually drains your energy. You feel really, not energetic, frustrated, and something like you want to avoid. Okay, so there's something that you can actually observe. Okay, um, about what's the percentage of the time that you're actually spending on different of these tasks. And one of the reason why to observe this is you can, one, identify, what actually would be the best use of your time. And also, are there particular things that actually can help you to go deeper into your genius zone? All right. So the second question today is, how much time each day do you think you are spending on, these different types of tasks? Those that you are genius of, you're just doing adequate, or you're just doing poorly. Okay, what's the roughly percentage? Okay, all right. I think we have another question. I will answer the questions at the end of the coaching. All right. Okay. So, all right. So I think let's start with the, yeah. And for this, I think give you just 60 seconds, okay, to think about what are the time periods that you're actually doing on each of these tasks, okay, on a daily basis. Okay, so 60 seconds on this. All right, let's start. Okay, all right, 10 more seconds. Okay, all right. So hope everyone is done. Okay. All right, so for our last question, I think we'll share a bit about the some of the 10x ideas. Okay, so this is something, okay, I think it's about, um, so Dr. Ben Hardy actually has simplify, okay. the 10x model into three core concepts. The first is what's called, your frame. Okay, frame is basically you can see it as how you are looking at the world. Okay, so it's kind of the, you want to have a very clear, view of what the world is like and what you like to become. Okay, or your goal. You can think of that as your goal. And then there's the what's called floor. Okay, and floor is basically something you are saying no to. Uh, I'll share a bit about this, this concept here with the this slide. Okay, so this is actually a core model that we're going to revisit many times. Okay, during this, which is most of the times, or most people actually are on what's called a linear trajectory. This is where you are setting things, based on your existing views. You're setting goals. So you're also doing things 80% similar to what you've been always doing. Maybe there's 10 or 20% of new stuff. Okay, new stuff that's in your life. But if you really actually want to go to 10x, okay, which is actually a different degree of growth, you are only keeping 20% of what you're doing. Okay, and 80% is actually new stuff, which, well, actually will not happen until you have removed your existing, whatever you're doing. Okay, and this is actually the standard. Okay, you can call this line here, separating the 20% and 80% as your floor. Okay, so you can think of that as the minimum standard. So for example, I'll give an example. For me, one of the floors I do now is that I I will not enter into a, let's say, a emotional argument with family members. Okay, if I'm sensing the discussion is moving to that direction, I will not participate. I will stop. I will leave the conversation. I will cut it. Okay, so that has actually become my kind of standard for, for a while. And the reason is that we all know those kind of conversations are not productive, are energy draining, right? And actually a big time waster, right? So once I actually have set that as my floor, I actually will remove a lot of the noise task that's below my standards. Okay, and that actually not only save me time, save, energies on both sides, but also, I think improving relation and help it to propel it into a better and positive direction. Okay, so this is one example when, applying in personal life. And you can also apply this to your work, okay, to your study, okay. So this is called the floor. And then the third concept is called focus, okay. So focus is essentially something that in the 20% that you want to put your attention to, the best part that you want to amplify. Okay, so it's the frame, which is how you're looking at things, whether you are actually seeing things from a 10x perspective, and then floor and focus. Okay, so these are, I think, three key concepts to share. And once and actually part of that is to leverage this idea well. Okay, you want to first set up a new frame. Okay, by that, what I mean a new frame is that how you are looking at yourself and your goals, differently. And usually you can do this by 10xing, your goal to kind of an impossible level. So our last question today is, what does your a 10x future self for the next stage of your life look like? This can be something, when I mean next stage, it can be, 1 to 3 years in the future, right? So think about 1 to 3 years from now. What would you look like? What would your life be look like? Hello? Hello? Can you guys hear?
Yes.
All right, okay, yeah. So basically, what would your life look like? Okay, in 1 to 3 years. Okay, and based on what we just shared, okay, what would be your priorities? The 20% you want to focus and the 80% that you like to drop out. Okay, so for this, I'll give you guys 90 seconds. Okay, to jot down what's your future self. In 1 to 3 years. All right. So, and what does it look like for you at that time? What is something that you will be focusing or continue to focus? And what are something that's no longer in your life, that's below your floor? That's the 80%, right? That you have already removed. All right. So 90 seconds on this. Okay, let's start. 10 more seconds. Okay, all right. So I think we'll open the floors for some shares. Okay, so you can either share your answers to these questions, or you can also share some of your insights. Okay, any realization or any even questions you might have. Okay, about when we were doing these questions. All right. So anyone would like to start? You can raise your hand, or you can unmute yourself. Okay, or you're too shy? Okay, actually don't be. Okay, that's the only way you're learning. So just curious, Mark Bakay, is that your name? How I pronounce? Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, that's right.
All right, okay, all right. So would you like to share maybe your answers to the questions, Mark, or
Okay,
any
yeah, sure.
insights,
So
questions?
I'd like to share my answer for the first question.
Okay.
So I'm actually a university student right now, but one of the most, I would say, memorable failures I had back in high school was that during my entrance to high school, there was a test for us, which was like a writing test. And back then, I wasn't really good in writing. And so I failed the test. That part, and I wasn't able to enter the school that I wanted to go to. And so when I entered a different high school, I I put myself in a situation where I should be pressuring myself kind of to be good in writing because that I I knew that writing was my weakness, and so I have to be better at it. And so what I did is that I joined a writing club, which was something that's totally out of my comfort zone. And then after 6 years in high school, I became one of the editorial boards in like our newspaper for the school. And so yeah, I think one of the things that
Oh,
I've
excellent.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
One of the things that I realized is that you always have to acknowledge that you can be bad at things at first. Yeah. You also have to acknowledge that you also need help. And because in that way, you're able to recognize that there are a lot of things that you can improve on, and that what you are right now may not be the same you in the future. What's sure is that you can be better in the future. So yeah, that's it for me,
Okay.
I guess.
Wow, excellent, excellent. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for sharing that. All right. So I think I'll take you this example, okay, to for some feedback. Would that be all right?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, okay. So sorry, actually, do you have anything else you'd like to share or any questions you'd like to ask for that matter?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, okay, all right. So, well, I think first of all, thank Mark for sharing this story. I think it's an incredible story. Okay, it is a resilient story, and you are, you realize, right? We could be bad at first at something, but then you can also improve, and your future definitely may not be the same as your present. So this is exactly the future self. Okay, the concept and also the science behind, which is, and the reason why I want you guys to look at your past is that we all have our some past. Okay, but these are like golden mines and gold, there's gold nuggets they can dig out to find the successful experiences that you want to keep and perhaps multiply in the future. Because when you can identify these things, these become your strength and your uniqueness. Okay, that's could 20% that you can take onto your next future self level, right? So, so identifying this, I think it's excellent. Okay, it's actually quite valuable. Okay, and I encourage you to you probably all have things like that. Okay, that's in your past and something you've learned, something you've gained, and that could also help you to propel forward now. Okay. All right, so I guess that's something. All right, so perhaps we can have another person to share. Is Rupali, would you like to share your answers or some or insights you realize or question from the question? I mean, from the question we just answered. Rupali, would you like to share? Okay, all right. Well, if not, that's fine. Okay, or you can share in the chat. We have Google Pixel 7. Okay. Probably encourage you to rename yourself. Okay, identify yourself with your name. Okay, that would be best. Would you like to share your answers? Okay, all right. So this is something, we are an interactive session. Okay, so it's best if you are sharing and also joining. That's encouraged. Now, okay, so that's I think that probably gives you a flavor. Okay, so we will be going on something like this, but again, obviously moving more towards our thesis of how to do the entrepreneur YC and also can do the 10x in this. Now I'd like to answer maybe the question. Okay, so I think Google Pixel 7, okay, you have asked the question, what's the internship work position? Okay, all right. So I'll be right now what you're going through, I would say this is the basic training for you guys, okay, in terms of basic ideas, understanding. Because the our goal here is actually be able to help you to okay. Um okay, all right. But okay, I think Jane has something she wanted to share. All right. Okay, you can do that. But let me answer the question, the internship. Um, the idea is that we want you to basically um, from our perspective, we like to see a lot of successful social impact entrepreneurs out from this program. Okay, whether it be after or in the future, a month, or a year or maybe 10 years from now. It doesn't matter. But if you can learn something and become entrepreneurs, that's what we like to see. Now, the process is, go through the coaching materials, the weekly coaching calls, the recorded lessons, okay, and do weekly reviews. So that's the basic procedure. Now, that's the basics. If you want to develop further, and I'll definitely encourage you to do so, okay, is to participate in one of our existing projects. And we do have, including, okay, actually a sender. Actually, in fact, for our second hour, we will be doing a work sync, okay? That is going to be actually a conversation. You will see firsthand how Ascender itself as a startup is being run. Okay, what we're doing and what we are actually also achieving and also even struggling. Okay, and how are we going to look at our own impossible goal of getting 1,000 impact unicorns in 20 years? And our immediate goal is to create the first impact unicorn, and also I think attracting great talent from different places. Okay, so that will actually give you a first seat look at kind of how startup organizations are being run. I'm not sure we are the best, or I'm sure there's a lot of, we're the best in our own category, I'm sure, because I think very few accelerators actually have the goal of 1,000 unicorns or 3-person unicorns. Okay, so that's something kind of different for us. Yeah, so you're welcome to join the second hour, okay, for that. All right, I hope that, and you might be assigned some, some task if you decided to volunteer that you want to contribute. Okay, so I hope that answers your question for Google Pixel 7. All right, okay. So if there's no more questions, then I think what we'll do is do a wrap up, which usually how we do this is we'll give you a form to actually spend 1 minute to write down what is your biggest learning takeaway from today, and then what is your one action you like to do, okay, moving forward. Okay, so I'll be sharing this form. Oh yeah, and I think Jane has something to share. So would you like to share a bit,
Well,
Jane?
I think in terms of the time, right? So do you want me to share or
Right.
we can proceed? No problem.
Okay, maybe quickly, if you have something to share, just to, I think, because this will also be recorded, for the cohorts to watch. So if you have something you'd just like to feedback, I think that would be helpful for people to think about. I think we can do that.
Oh, okay, sure. Quickly.
Okay,
I
yeah, go
think
ahead.
the question 2, question 3, first of all, I love the question, ask people to think, give us time to reflect. I think question 2, question 3 to me are related, right? Because I wrote for myself is I hope like I spend like 7 hours a day on the Genius Zone, 7 hours about like sleep, and then like 2 hours or less in the pain, and that still leave 8 hours to those okay things, right? That make me think, I would rather to do more on the genius than do the okay things, right? As little as possible. So I'm thinking, right, talking about the third one, how do we shift from really focus on that 80, from your best 20 to that 80, right? For me, right, as you all heard from Shenyuan, we are going to work together to build the unicorn. So for me, that 1 to 3 years is to build our first unicorn. That's the goal. That's the 80%. For my 20% would be, right, still some things okay, essential I have to do. But I also would like to also to put some time into investment, right? When I mean investment, something may not have immediate return, but it can help me in the long run. For example, like learning, like exercise, right? Eating healthy, cooking better, all those things, mental strengths. I think those things may not have immediate return, but that pays for the long run. So that's what I want to share. Happy to receive any comments.
Yeah, okay, yeah, all right. So actually, we are doing a mastermind. So with mastermind, I like to share the concept. It's not just me talking or, some of the speaker or the sharer talking. You guys are also, welcome to share your feedback or questions to the speaker. Because when we have a common goal and, we like to support each other, that actually allows our brains to kind of merge together, and one plus one will actually be greater than three. Okay, this is actually the magic of mastermind. So just, I guess, quickly, anyone would like to feedback for what Jane has shared? Okay, or ask her questions? Okay, if not, then I'll jump in, okay? I would definitely encourage you to look at how you're spending your time. Okay. And one of the definition, or characteristic, I'd say I have learned from quote unquote world-class people is that they are spending pretty much 80 to 90% of their time in flow mode in their genius zone. Okay. And maybe for some, it's 100%. Okay. So for example, just give them some example, like I think people talk about when they speak to like Jeff Bezos or let's say Dalai Lama, you actually have this feeling that you are the center of their attention. Okay, that they are very, very focused and present when they are talking and engaging with you. So in other words, like all the interactions they have are actually in a flowed mode. Okay, meaning that they're fully immersed, fully engaged at the present moment. Okay, and that is very powerful because that is actually, I think, one of the deepest bonding and connection, right? And I think engagement a person can have. Okay, I mean, this is just an example. So I guess if we can all, I'm also not there yet. Okay, although I definitely think my future self will be, but it's worthwhile to at least be aware of where are you spending your time, attention, and energy on. What are the activities that you currently spend time? And obviously the goal is to increase your genius zone time. And yeah, so that's something. And one trick to do this, I think, is to profile, how you're actually spending time first, right? To kind of, record and, moment by moment, hour by hour, right? This is something they call this is something you can do. And then just, once you have identified the different activities, for the okay things, it's probably good to delegate. Okay. So the not so good thing, well, basically for the energy draining thing, that's something that should be deleted. Okay. For okay things, you also eliminate. But if it's still essential, then you probably want to delegate or automate. Okay, so I think those are some of, and there are books, for example, The Replaceable Founder. That's a great resource. Ari, I think he shares a lot of tips, techniques regarding that. It's called The Replaceable Founder. And one more tip is usually if you don't have the time to read the whole book, there's a lot of good like summaries you can find, I think on YouTube, on the internet, that you can learn very quickly. Okay, and just apply, with tiny habits. So I guess that's my feedback. All right, hopefully that helps. Okay, all right, so I think we'd like to cap this for an hour, although our first session, so it takes a bit longer, okay? But I'm sharing this feedback form here. So I'll invite everyone to spend 1 minute, okay, to just write down what is your biggest takeaway today and what is one action moving forward for you, okay? This is not just for us, this is for you actually to kind of, summarize and also, we all learned a lot of information, let's say in the last hour, but what resonates and what's your action? Okay, so 1 minute on this. Let's start. Okay, so 10 more seconds. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'd like to invite some quick shares. Okay, anyone would like to share? What's your biggest takeaway and the action forward for today? Anyone? Or you can also type. Okay, so maybe Sahar, would you like to share? Um, okay, Rupali, I don't know if that's how you spell. Rupali, can you share what's your biggest takeaway and also what's something, an action? Okay, Google Pixel 7. By the way, you should rename yourself, okay, to identify. All right, okay. I think okay. Basically, I think uh, um to well Jane, maybe you like to share. Well, if you are we definitely would like to hear some, if you have something you have learned, it would be best to actually share. All right, so Jane, would you like to share? Is there
Sure.
something?
If
Yeah, okay, go ahead.
you can always contact me but
Yeah,
if
okay,
anybody else,
sure.
certainly go for it.
Mhm.
So for me, the biggest learning is what you just said a few minutes ago, like looking at our past as a golden mine to actually build on your strengths forward, right? Become your because I think a lot of time we look at our past like trying to improve, which is great. We do all want to improve, right? But really honing on our strengths, it's easier and far more effective. So I think that's big takeaway for me. And one action is also the last when you give me feedbacks, really trying to be more at the present, right? Not like the drift or or coming up with your ideas or waiting to speak versus just paying attention to the other person. Yeah. I think you
Yeah,
are
I
muted.
think I think that's yeah. Okay. I think that's excellent. Okay. Well, one thing I guess to remind everyone, myself included, is that oftentimes it's just a tiny step, okay, tiny habit to make, but over time that will accumulate. Okay. So this is something we can, keep in mind. All right. So hopefully this is helpful. Okay. I think it's our first session. I think we will get to know about each other over time. But it's essentially something, I do have high hope and expectation that you can all become your best versions of yourself, your future selves, and a 10x version. Okay. And this will be a 10x journey. I believe for many of you. Okay, all right, so thanks. And that concludes our, first coaching session, first hour. Now, you're free to depart, okay, to leave. But if you're curious or if you'd like to learn, feel free to stay. Okay, so we will start our second part now. All right.